I had the difficulty of choosing between finance and consulting. So I pretty much just did 2 different internships in these 2 industries. And these, okay. And these are the some of the interviews that I had with different firms and also the offers that I received. But what is really unique about my situation is that I went through 2 complete recruiting seasons. So in 2016, during my senior year, I received a full-time offer from IBM to work as a strategy and transformation consultant in their New York office. But then mid-August 2017, they withdrew my offer because they couldn't sponsor my visa anymore. So I have to do the same thing all over again, except this time it's much harder because I have already graduated and cannot use the campus recruiting anymore. So I spent a lot of time networking in different recruiting events and also on LinkedIn, and received my offer from Deloitte Consulting through internal referral. So I guess I just want to, the next section is just gonna be some of the insights that I generated throughout. So first, let's start with how to build a successful resume. And there are 3 things that I think could be helpful. First thing is that I find it really beneficial to ask a lot of people to read over your resume and get multiple perspectives. What I meant by that is that you should talk to both professional who works in the particular industry that you're interested in, and also non-professionals such as your friends and families. So obviously, if you ask a professional to review your resume, then you will have advice on how to make it more appealing in the eyes of someone who works in that particular industry. But sometimes HR will be the first one to read over your resume. So in this case, it's important that you explain everything very clearly so that even someone without the industry expertise can understand what you did exactly. And the second tip that I want to give is that I always just create a generic version of my resume and then tailor it to the specific industry or the company that I want to apply. For example, as you can see on the right side, it's the same internship experience, but then for consulting, I would say something like client's corporate DNA, redesign the target operating model. But for finance, I will mention that my project is my client is a top asset management firm, and I did research distressed debt or illiquid asset in Chinese financial market. So just depending on the audience, you want to tune it so that your resume actually have a higher chance in passing to the next round of interview. And then the third tip that I find really useful, this is actually something I learned from my CareerSpeedy mentor, Tim, is just that you should always add a section on hobby or interest to make it more personal. I guess this is for 2 reasons. First, it makes it easier for the person who reviews your resume to gain a holistic views of who you are. So you seem more like a person rather than just a piece of paper. Secondly, it actually gives you and your interviewer something to talk about during the interview process, and it can be fun and also interactive as well. So I saw someone raise their hand. Am I supposed to just answer it? Hello?
Hello. Thank you. I think let's leave the questions until the final section, Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're fine to continue. Thank you.
I see. No problem. My screen didn't work again. Wait.
Oh, your screen didn't work.
Yeah, can you help me to go back to?
to the resume, the slides perhaps?
No, yeah, but then can you go down a slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Interview techniques, right?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry about that. Technical
worries.
difficulties. So next we'll move on to the interview section. The first thing that I want to talk about is actually the most important lesson I learned from my recruiting process, is to really understand why they choose to interview you. So the reason I say that is because if you made it to the interview process, your resume was selected for a reason. And once you get to that stage, it's pretty much they just want to match the paper with your face. And they want to confirm the same potential that they saw in your resume to the person in front of them. So if you waste time talk about things that they actually don't care about, then they won't think you are a good fit. To give you an example, before I came to CareerSpeedy, in every interview I had, I always try to explain why IBM withdrew my offer and my current visa situation. But guess what? Almost all my interviewers are American, so they won't have the same experience that I did. Secondly, they just couldn't care less about my visa situation and all that, because that's not the reason that I got selected to the interview. So I guess the key is just to really understand what's truly important for the interviewers, and then just reiterate it back to them. And the second point I want to make is that tell me about yourself. It's often the first question you get, and it's the most important question, because 90% of the time, the interviewers will make decision to pass or not pass you in the first 5 to 10 minutes. Same goes for case interview as well. And the key to answer, tell me about yourself, is to make your experience a cohesive story instead of just repeating things that you said on your resume. Sometimes, even if your past experience doesn't have any relationship with one another whatsoever, you should still try to connect the dots by linking up the lessons or the skills that you acquired in the past internship experience. For example, on my resume, I jumped from being a research assistant for my psychology professor to the internship I had with IBM. So the way I connected these two is by saying, oh, I really enjoy my academic research experience, but I want to apply my quantitative and problem-solving skill in the real world, which is why I choose to work at IBM as a strategy consultant intern. And moving on to the next point, I think it's very important for you to focus on fundamental skills as opposed to the level of expertise. Because in every entry-level position, it's expected that they will teach everything that you need to know about the job. So your level of experience actually doesn't really matter that much. Even if you have like 3 really relevant internship experience, they'll still assume that you know nothing. But in terms of fundamental skills, such as being a quick learner, being able to communicate with each other very well, or being a team player, these are the things that your interviewers will think that they cannot teach you, which is why they will make it a priority before your experience or skill. And the next point I want to make is always make everything easier for your interviewer for that. And then, the way you communicate should be easy to follow. And the length of your story should never be more than 3 minutes. Otherwise, people just lose interest. And then if you're talking about a particular field that you think may be unfamiliar with to your interviewer, to make sure do not use a lot of industry jargon. Because if you make it hard for them to follow or understand, they're just simply not listening anymore. And no matter how good of an experience you had, if they're not going to listen, then it does you no good, right? And the last and the final point about the interview technique that I want to make is that during the final section of your interview, you will often get a questions like, do you have any question for me? Which is a chance for you to ask questions for the interviewer. And I found it really useful to make sure you ask at least one question about interviewer himself, because if you keep asking questions such as, oh, what do you think about the market today? What is the future trend in strategy consulting? It is the same kind of thing that they discuss every day with their boss, colleagues, and maybe 6 other person that they interviewed it today. So it's not going to make them remember you. So instead of that, why not just make it personal and try to really have a conversation with a person, so that he will think that you had a really good people skill. And the second point I want to make is we always underestimate how much people like to talk about themselves. So if you make them talk about themselves, they'll actually remember you even more. And then, Roger, can you move on to the next slide? Okay. Next, I want to move on to talk about some of the networking techniques I learned. First, it's important to understand why we do networking. It's obvious that if you can get an internal referral, that's really great. But then there are other things as well. For example, the networking process actually forces you to research the company or the particular group that you are, the person that you are going to meet up with is in. Because like, imagine if you are gonna have a conversation for 30 minutes with the person, and that person is not going to prepare a lot of things. So you have to prepare all the questions yourself. You have to know what the firm does and then what their group does. So it sort of gives you a head start before the interview to research the company and the group. And secondly, it's just a good practice run for the actual interview, because you are going to communicate with that person about your past experience and also why you are interested in their company as well. And I think as a beginner to networking, the most important thing is the mindset that you get. You need to remember that with networking, you really have nothing to lose. What I mean by that is, so what if one person doesn't respond to your LinkedIn invite? So what if you mess up one coffee chat? You're probably not going to see that person ever again. So you have nothing at stake. Why not just try and then try to network with as many people as possible. It will be good practice for your interviews as well. And secondly, it's really a numbers game in that sometimes people don't respond to your message, not because they don't want to, but because probably they're busy with their work and forgot to reply. And same thing with the referral. Some people just are more inclined to help out than others. So you just have to try your number, try your luck, and then you will find the one who is willing to refer you. Can we move on to the next slide? Okay. And next, I'm gonna talk about how to actually reach out. There are 3 ways that you can do it. First is, of course, your networking event, both in school and outside. And also LinkedIn, or some people use corporate email. Either way, I think the message that I send out is pretty similar. And I use LinkedIn pretty extensively. And as you can see from the right side, this is pretty much just what I said in real time about like a message to reach out to different people. And I find that I had the most luck to reach out to them Tuesday to Thursday, 9 to 12 or 4 to 5, because that's the time that they have the most free time. And I wouldn't, for the LinkedIn message that I actually send out, I wouldn't change a lot. What I did is I actually go on LinkedIn and then look into their profile. And then if I find something interesting, I would just change did you see the box in orange? I would just change that one sentence. and then send it out to different people so that, I don't have to make a lot of effort personalizing every message that I send out, but then they wouldn't feel like I just send the same message to everyone. So I have a higher chance of response. Can you scroll down to the next slide? Okay. And then moving on to what do you actually say in a coffee chat or a phone call? What I usually do is I will usually introduce myself using the elevator pitch, which is basically a shorter version of tell me about myself. And then the order of my question is usually as followed. I would first talk about themselves first, just to make things very personal. And then I would talk about their company and the culture and the day-to-day work that they do. And then my upcoming or potential interview with the firm. And at the end of the coffee chat, if you want to ask for referral, you should ask questions like, based on what we have talked about today, do you know anyone whom I can reach out to? Or is there anything that I can do to increase my chances of getting in? This is usually the part that they know that you're asking for a referral or at least some help. So they'll probably introduce some of their colleagues, or if you're lucky, they will actually refer you as well. I have faced the situation before. And then to follow up, just to make sure you send a thank you email within 24 hours. And then if you want to follow up again, make sure you do it within 2 weeks to a month of time. Then can you move on to the next slide? Yeah, so this is all I can talk about based on my experience. And I'm gonna hand over to Tim and then make him do his self-introduction as well.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for your great sharing. Before moving to Tim's self-introduction, I want to ask, is there any question from the listeners? Any questions regarding Lizzie's experience or her stories, her insights? And if there's any question, we can quickly address the questions right now. So actually, I have a question.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I think you're like a master in terms of networking. You talk a lot about from why to how and when. Even you have when. This is very surprising. I never see the ideal time of contact anywhere else except from here, from you. So I think, can you give me a story, like a success story? How did you network to someone and he or she referred you to the company and you got the interview?
Yeah, no problem. So I think that one of the success stories that I had is with someone who works at Lead Economic Consulting. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So I basically explained my situation to him, and he is a Vietnamese, and then he faced the same kind of visa situation before, so he feels very sympathetic to my circumstance. So after the initial phone call, I think it went really well. He actually just said, just send me your resume and then I'll pass it out to HR. And then that actually led into the first round of interview. And then we still keep in touch, actually, because I follow up with him like 2 months or a month afterwards. And then basically said, I'm still very interested in Lead Economics and Consulting. Maybe in the future, let's meet up and then we can talk more about it.
That's a great story. Okay. Now, thank you for addressing that. Now we have questions from the audiences. The first question is that, did you participate in any clubs at Stern that you found very helpful? I think it's from a Stern student.
I am a president in one of the Stern Club called Stern Business and Law Association. But I personally I like MCG, Management Consulting Group, a lot because they hosted a lot of recruiting events related to consulting. And sometimes they will have case interview buddies sign up where you can pair up with another student to do your case practice, which I find really useful as well. And they just have a lot of events on, bringing in different professionals who works in different kinds of consulting, which I find it useful as well. So MCG, I definitely think that has a lot of useful resources.
Okay, thank you. MCG sounds like a great club. And second question is it a lot harder to be hired if you need visa sponsorship? So it looks like Tim has something else to say about regarding this question, but can we ask for your answer first?
I honestly, I would think yes. I think in terms of the level of difficulty to get hired, American definitely has an advantage, especially in consulting. I'm not sure about finance and tech. I think it's a bit easier for tech. And then in consulting, half of them basically just don't sponsor international students. And then for the other half, it's difficult. It's tough.
Okay, we'll go deeper into this question later. And question 3, I think I can answer this question, is can Lizzie please share your contact information?
I mean, it's at the end of the slideshow, so
yes,
it's coming up.
At the end of the slides. Yeah, you'll find it shortly. And a next question from another Stern alumni is, with the Stern background, is financial service consulting easier to get in than management consulting? Thank you.
With Stern, so in Stern, I am assuming you majored in finance. I think as long as you can justify that. So do you want to do management consulting or financial consulting? Because that's two different things. Because with financial advisory, if your background is finance, then you're really fine. Like you're the perfect candidate that they're looking for. But with management consulting, you have to justify why consulting over finance. That's the only part. But I think that with the Stern background, I don't find it as a problem because I get in from CAS as a liberal arts background. So you should be fine.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Mandy is that which part did you find CareerSpeedy to be most helpful along your recruiting process?
I would say definitely Tim. I don't think I will get into Deloitte or anything like that without his help. Like honestly, because as I have said before, I always mention my visa situation, and then I sometimes state it in my resume as well. So during that part, like not a single firm is willing to bring me in, even to interview. I think with Tim's help, I first revised my resume to not include that part. And also he helped me to craft my story so that it's simpler and then it's easier to understand for the interviewers. And then we practice case interview and different behavior questions, which is all very useful to the actual interviews. So I would definitely say that my mentor at CareerSpeedy is the most helpful.
Thank you. We're going to go deeper into this question, how CareerSpeedy is going to help the candidates. And here's a follow-up message from the Stern students. She said she's most interested in management consulting instead of finance.
Okay. I think the easiest way, I don't know if you are a junior or senior, the easiest way is always to get in through an internship. That way you don't have to justify whether your background is finance or not. But then if you are a senior and then you had a lot of finance experience, you just need to make sure you say something like, oh, I had a lot of internship in finance, but there's something that I didn't like about finance. The reason that I give, because I have to make the same justification as well, is that I find like finance pretty repetitive because you're doing the same work and working with the same group of people, versus management consulting. You're allowed to work on different projects, and then every client's different, every day is different. So in that sense, it gives you more of a challenge. That's how I justify consulting over finance.
All right, thank you. And next question is from a freshman in CAS.
Yeah.
She wonders what kind of subjects or classes are related to consulting, or what kind of techniques are important for getting into consulting. And thank you.
Yeah, I think with consulting, I'm assuming you're talking about management consulting. There's really no particular background that is specifically for management consulting. Just make sure that you really practice your case interview really well. So that's the only technical part that management consulting cares about. And then in terms of subjects, I have taken a class which is called Casing Method, Data Analysis and Presentation. It's a 2-credit class in STIR, which basically teaches you the different kinds of business models that firms use, and then the different kinds of business strategies as well. So I think that class is definitely very helpful. But in terms of background, management consulting really don't have a cookie cutter fit. So you can major in anything and study anything. As long as you ace the case, it's going to be fine.
Right. Personally, I strongly agree. And next question from Iris. Iris asks, is freshman summer internship important? And would an intern in a big name company be very helpful?
I feel like, because I didn't have a lot of internship until my junior year. So I don't know if freshman's internship is important or not, because personally, I don't have one. But big name definitely helps, but it also depends on the region. If you have 3 different internships in China, it will actually hurt your case in a little bit, because they will see it as you are not adjusting to the American culture. But then if it's a big firm in America, then yeah, it definitely helps. It helps you to get into not only consulting, just like any types of big firm that you want to go into. It definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Yeah. But personally, I think as a freshman, it's quite difficult to get a real summer internship, unless I met someone who had a freshman year summer internship at, I think it was IBM or SAP New York office, because he has a big father. And that was the reason.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Any more questions? I think one more question is, can you repeat the class name you just recommended?
Yeah, it's called Casing Method, Data Analysis and Presentation.
Casing Method, Data and... Okay.
Analysis and Presentation.
All right. I hope this time you got the name of this class. If there's no further questions, let's move to the other part. You can still raise your questions, and we're going to address them in the final Q&A section, all right? Thank you for the questions, and let's invite Tim. Tim, are you there?
Hi, Roger. Yes, I'm here.
All right, it's your time.
Okay. Could you move to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining on Saturday night. I know it's a very valuable time, so we'll try to make the best out of this time for you. To say the first, I think I actually was born in, I'm Korean, but like I was born in Philippines and grew up in Southeast Asia. Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. And then for my career, what I started was I started my career with Army. So I joined the U.S. Army and then actually served there for about 3 years as a liaison officer. And then after that, I joined A.T. Kearney, which was actually at that time in the Army, I thought operation was cool to see tanks being moved, and then airplanes, and then the carriers. I thought that I want to learn more about how to manage the operations, right? So that's when I actually learned that A.T. Kearney has such a good operational strategy team. So I joined A.T. Kearney and served there for 3 years. And then after 3 years, I found out that it's becoming a little bit repetitive. So I joined BCG for about 2 to 3 months. But then I found out I don't like BCG culture. I'm a better fit for Bain. So that's when I actually moved to Bain and they started to do more about strategy management consulting for big Fortune companies. So while at A.T. Kearney, I was actually serving out of, initially out of Seoul, but I worked in Berlin, Munich, Moscow, and even Kiev. So I was mostly based in Europe. And for Bain, I was actually serving out of Singapore. And also I was actually serving out of US offices as well. So, you know, when you're in consulting, you actually get to move around a lot. So that was a really fun time. But after 6 years and 7 years of consulting, I decided, okay, it's time for me to kind of think about the future. And that's when I actually applied to MBA and then went to MIT MBA class. So I joined MIT Sloan and I graduated. And the funny thing is, I actually wanted to kind of try, because I already work at Bain and BCG and A.T. Kearney. So during the MIT times, I actually applied to McKinsey and I got into McKinsey Houston office. It was fun, but at the same time, I also tried out some of the other tech companies in the Silicon Valley, where I got into Apple and Facebook and some other tech companies. And comparing the options, I decided to join the tech companies in Silicon Valley. So that's about me from the career standpoint. But then since I joined A.T. Kearney, I had a lot of, because I was actually, I founded the management consulting club in my school. So after I got into consulting, I got a lot of requests from my junior friends who wanted to learn how to break into management consulting. And I honestly thought that consulting is the best way to ramp up your understanding about the business. And after a few years of consulting, you're well trained and then you'll be treated well. And then you're oftentimes scouted into your dream company as well. So I helped a lot of my junior friends. And also, I think initially it started out as a casual teaching, but then once I actually have more of my junior students actually enter consulting companies with my help, I think somehow the news kind of got spread out and I had to kind of start, there was so much request that I started to do this as a professional support as well. So I actually would spend my weekend to help young and very talented students to break into management consulting. And it was very fun because after they get into management consulting, we'll still keep in touch and then talk to each other and talk about different projects we do and discuss a lot of like long-term visions, career tracks, and then how each company is different. So it was really good to kind of bring up new generation of management consultant and then network with them and then understand the overall structure of the industry and where we are going. And that kind of got even more ignited after I met Roger. So Roger and I met at MIT Fudan Alliance through program. And we actually met and we were very passionate and kind of entrepreneur spirited. So we, I mean, the first time we met, it actually took off and then we wanted to kind of, basically Roger had a vision about building something very innovative to help people to get into their dream job. I mean, that's the best way to help people. And for me, I also love teaching people. And the most joy that I have is when people get their dreams achieved, and then when they get into their dream company. And for Lizzie, she's such a hardworking, talented, and has a really good GPA, and she's just attitude and character-wise, she's a great person. And because of the visa issue, she was discounted in the eyes of the recruiter. So for me, it was definitely something that I really, really wanted to do, to just bring out what Lizzie, who Lizzie is, and show to the world that who she truly is. And then she obviously got a lot of offers after that. So I think my passion is kind of helping others, and especially it's really fun to kind of interact with the young and talented students, and then see them actually break into the job they want, and then grow there, and then keep in touch, and then we network. And many of my former students, which I taught like a few years ago, they are actually at least a senior consultant in their companies, and it's always fun to keep in touch with them. When I fly to Singapore or Munich or other countries, we keep in touch and then have a good beer and then talk about life and then the business. It's always a good insight and a lot of fun discussion there. So that's the key motivation. And I think after I actually, because I like people, even at IT Kearney and Bain, I served as a volunteer recruiting manager, and I actually helped to develop the case interviews, which is being used during the case interview to hire the best people. So after knowing this, I think I kind of wanted to kind of share this with more people so they can better prepare for consulting, and then crack into it, and then learn the key skills, and then move on to the area where they actually eventually want to do. So that's the key motivation for me, to kind of interact with the young and talented people and help them to succeed. And for my track record, I think just with CareerSpeedy, I think I have about 9 to 10 who got into top tier MBB, and about 20 plus who got into second tier or tier 2 good consulting companies. So in geographical wise, it's in US as well as in Asia. But prior to that, I think in Singapore or in Korea or in Germany, I also helped some of the students to get in, which is, I kind of lost track of the count, but I think there is enough of a track record to say that there were a lot of fun experience with the students and a lot of stories to share. So I think to make this, I already see a lot of chats and a lot of questions. This is great, because I really, really want to, the best way to help you is by answering your questions and then demystifying rumors and misperception about management consulting, and then how to get into management consulting. Because with the right information and with the right strategy, I think, just like look at Lizzie. If you're from NYU, it's a great school. And I think there's plenty of chance with the right strategy placed from early on that you will make it successful, and it will actually really help you to kickstart your career path. So so that's where I will stop. But Roger, do you want to maybe take a break and then answer the question, or do you want me to move on and finish some of the slides and then answer those questions?
Yeah, I think you want to address some of the questions. Let's start
Sure.
with the questions. And I see one more question coming in.
Okay.
Which one would you like to start?
Yeah. Okay. So I think, do I start with the, okay. Got it. Okay. Different job types in consulting.
Okay.
Yeah. Roger, do you want to take that answer?
Yeah, sure, please. Or if you have different, if you want to go deeper into previous questions, like visa sponsorship, like whatever questions you have an interest, please do that.
Sure. I think maybe I will answer this immediate question first, and then we can actually kind of go back to the visa question. I think that's a very important question for international students, because I was right. Cool. So yeah, I think actually I want to clarify what the question is, but I think inside the management consulting, there are actually new areas being developed, such as there is a traditional management consulting where you join as a junior analyst and then you grow to be, you eventually have to specialize in certain industry or certain function. And that's expected role within management consulting. However, there are also, like, if you take a step back, beside the management consulting, there are also other types of management consulting. There is a economics consulting. These are the companies who actually say, if there is a recession in China, how will that impact the US economy, right? Or so they are, if you increase the central government's interest rate, what's going to happen to the overall economy, right? So they actually take a step back and answer the strategic question from macro perspective. So there is a very premier companies like that, like such as Analysis Group or other companies. But if you refer to traditional management consulting, it would be something like McKinsey, BCG, Bain. However, inside McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and A.T. Kearney or other strategy or top tier companies, what you see is because of the new demand, there is new teams being made, such as there is a digital marketing team. So there is a team dedicated to help company transform their business into more digital-based businesses. So if you want to move your, if you only had offline stores, but you want to move and sell online at online stores, then these new teams specialize in the strategies to do that. If you want to think about how to do marketing using social media, these digital strategy teams inside McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, strategy, and they were actually specialized in those areas. And as well as there is also at Bain, there is also, and actually all other companies as well, there is a team which is dedicated to finance. So I see a question about, I'm more experienced in consulting, but if you're interested in financial field, we actually have investment bankers in our company who can be a great mentor. But if you are interested in joining the financial side inside the management consulting, I can actually advise you, because I worked at a private equity group within Bain, and I did exchange with Bain Capital. I mostly work with venture capitalists and private funds, equity funds, to do M&A, and then later sell it to make profit for them. So I think I can kind of, if you have more question about the career track inside the management consulting in regard to financials, then I can answer. If you want to go into a private equity fund or venture capital, I can help answer those questions. But if you want to become a traditional investment bankers, then we can connect you with our internal mentors who teach the investment banking career track. So it's actually it's one of our two major track. So I hope I kind of answered the different job types in consulting. And moving on to the next question, I think, how do students find their first consulting intern before they have any relevant experiences, right? So this is actually the hardest question, because you have to break into management consulting, and then you'll find that everything else then becomes super easy. So my recommendation is, I have seen a lot of different cases, but basically the earlier you apply, there is less expectation on your background, right? So if you start to prepare from first year or second year, listing some of the school project which sounds strategic and interesting will actually get you the first consulting internship. And also the other approach that we have seen frequently is, even if you don't have a lot of experience, if you have some outstanding experience inside the school, such as your GPA is very good, and then you did some really amazing project in one of your classes, or you won some contest while you're a student, then these things will actually grant you the door to get into the consulting experience. Or the other thing we also see is consulting companies actually come to schools a lot, and then they also visit STEM school a lot. And some of the partners will actually come and visit and then maybe lecture in one or two classes. And when that happens, the professors, of course, and then the partners, of course, have an agreement already that when they are invited to come, the partners at consulting company already know the expectation is that this consulting company will hire a few students from this school for their internship. So make sure you try to join those classes, which is actually linked to management consulting, and then also attend those seminars and workshops hosted by the consulting companies. And then that actually really increase your chance of getting the job, especially if you mentioned that you participate in one of their workshops. That helps. Like such as every spring, all the women students can apply to a women's workshop at McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, as well as Strategen and Booz Allen Hamilton, and so on. And you can apply, and then if you get in, that workshop doesn't care if you have prior internship or not, but it really actually talks about how to empower women to do to get more involved in the business. If you participate in the company driven events like that, then you actually have much better chance to get into their get your first internship at those companies. Is there a certain GPA requirement for management consulting? Generally, yes. If you are over 3.6, yes, you are fine. If you are below 3.6, like myself, then as long as you can explain why you have such a low GPA, then you should be fine. I mean, for me, I founded three student clubs, and then I devoted my time to managing clubs and contributing to helping international students, and then built a lot of programs. And because of that, they actually kind of understood why my GPA was low. And probably when I got into management consulting, they told me I have the lowest GPA in the history. But then, as long as you can justify why you have low GPA, but also excel really well on the case interview, then you are likely to pass. But there is special recommendation we have to provide, which is along with the application, you want to write a half-page long essays if your GPA is low, why your GPA is low, and show the achievement that you have made. And then tell them you just made a choice to kind of concentrate your energy and effort in the other area rather than GPA. But hopefully you have a good score in some of the critical courses. So I mean, if you have all C's in the critical courses in all of them, they're probably difficult. But I mean, if you have some good scores in the important classes, then you'll be fine. Good GPA for Chinese students. So good news is this, that regardless of which school you are from, and to be honest, I went to Bain Boston office, and then actually I asked if they know my scores in Korea. Of course they don't. So same thing for Chinese students. And so as long as they actually try to gauge people on the same standard. So if you are above 3.6, then you're fine. But if you're like at least 3.9, you have better chance. Some companies are more tolerable for low GPA. Some companies are less tolerable for low GPA. BCG is very academic driven. And BCG really, really likes people who have good GPA. So it will be slimmer chance for BCG. But McKinsey and Bain tends to actually kind of only consider GPA as one of the many factors. So you will have better chance with McKinsey and Bain as versus BCG. BCG will be a little difficult if you have less than 3.7. And they will still say, even if you do a lot of clubs and activities, that they expect to have you to have some good scores. Okay. And by the way, like to earlier, I think question about visas. So I think we have a database actually at CareerSpeedy. We track how many international students are sponsored H-1B visa in US. So this is actually H-1B visa is a work permit visa for international students who graduate from top schools like yourself. So we know they'll be hiring something like 150 roughly. And then, only about 2/3 of them will actually kind of accept the offer. So this is based on H-1B. So if you consider OPT and CPT, we expect the numbers to be about 200. So I think 200 to 250, but after they work for a year or two, some actually return to China or to their home, but some actually, and some underperform, so they don't decide to extend the H-1B, but we know that they extend H-1B for at least 150 students, which is, given that we can expect they actually hire about 250 students over per year. Some areas it's easier to get in, such as because they have big business there, such as consumer goods industry in New York. That's actually easier to get in if you have passion for that area. But New York is also kind of competitive because the volume of students is high. However, if you're aiming for the same office in the southern part of US, such as Texas, there is actually less competition. So it is actually sometimes strategically easier to focus on the southern side. Oh, so this we are actually going to post. So they have very fancy names actually. It's sometimes that's called McKinsey Women's some workshop, which I will double check with the team, and they will post it on the publication side, notice side of our company's website. I mean, let me just double check and then post it there. But so what I advise to many of the young and ambitious women students is that take advantage of these workshops hosted by these big name companies, and then either make a very nice addition to your resume and take some of the business classes, and then which actually does the kind of a collaborative work with the outside companies. You know those classes, right? And that so you will have a project within the class with the companies outside. They actually count as your work experience, and then they can be your work experience number one. And then be proactive and try to do the leadership role there, and then kind of devote your time to do problem solving, and you have a lot more to talk about. And then when you do that during the interview, they know you actually work hard on that one. You worked on a business case for a real company, and then you're likely to pass the resume screening and also pass the behavior question. Okay. Okay, so sophomore, perfect time. That's when I really advise a lot of people to kind of get started. I think to myself for management consulting. So I guess you're talking about how to get into management consulting club, right? So actually management consulting club is becoming a little more harder every year to get in, because I think there is more demand. So especially after demise of the investment banking actually kind of went down a little bit after financial crisis, and more regulations on them. So their salary went down significantly. There is a more trend of, actually from what we see is from year 2008, we actually see the number of applicants for management consulting increase as what management investment banking actually decrease. So there's a little more competition, but I think for that, I would actually say you have to prepare the same thing. The consulting clubs, so actually the funny thing is they recruit people the same way that management consulting companies will recruit students. So you have to take behavior questions, and then you have to take the case interviews as well. So my advice is to pair up with your buddies who want to join consulting club. We'll actually make a recommendation on our website. This is actually a good point that I should start to write on our website, that we have 3 books that we recommend that you start reading, and that they have some basic case interview questions. So I think that's where you can get started, right? Oh okay. I just saw the corrective, sorry.
Okay, I think we went through a lot of questions. Do you mind if we continue to the discussion, and we'll leave all the questions in the final section?
Sure, okay, that sounds good. Yep, okay. So please pardon me, I will get back to your questions, but please ask the questions as they arise. We can discuss this toward the end of the content, because we have a lot of good contents to share with you. So how to prepare for a case interview. And we have a very successful candidate student, Lizzie, who got multiple offers. So Lizzie and I will actually talk together to discuss this. So Lizzie,
Yep.
I think what would be good is like you just had the first-hand experience of applying for management consulting and go through a lot of rounds of interview.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you count as the three things that you see as the critical success factors for preparing well for the case interview? I mean, after you probably share the first insights, then probably I will chime in and add some of the insights I also found outside. Like I mean, we have all the agreements. I mean, we went through the same thing. So I would let you share first, and then if there's a few other things I want to share, I'll probably add on that.
Yeah, no problem. I think the three things that are the most important. First is your structure. Second is your logic. Third is your communication. Yeah, but not in this order. Sorry. I think the order that I would put, it would be logic and then communication and then structure. Sorry. So the case interview is basically testing, do you have the correct, or do you have the correct logic in solving this case? So whatever question that you ask, you need to present to your interviewer that, based on what we have talked about before, this is the question that I'm going to ask next. And then draw the line of logic so that your interviewer understands where you're coming from. I think that's the biggest thing that people test in case interview. And secondly, I think communication is definitely very, very important, because even if you're able to solve the case, if you don't communicate it in a way that your interviewers actually knows your line of thoughts, then that doesn't count. Then your interviewers will think you as unorganized, or it's just that they're not able to understand you, so they won't pass you to the next round. And third is the structure. The reason that I say that is because, as I've mentioned before, pretty much the first 5 to 10 minutes is the most important part of your case. I would say first 5 minutes, because in the first 5 minutes, you will pretty much clarify whatever question you have, and then lay out the entire structure for solving the case. And then while you are laying out the structure, you need to make sure that you didn't miss any very critical factors, such as, profit involves, revenue involves profit and loss, things like that. So I think that the three things that I think is very important is definitely logic, communication, and your overall structure.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. These are like the core of kind of doing well on the case interview. Like, Lizzie, do you maybe also mind sharing how you prepare to kind of ramp up your capability in these three areas?
Yeah, of course. So I think two things that are really helpful. First is definitely practice it with your friend or other people, such as your mentor, and just grab whoever you can grab, because everyone will chime in a different perspective, the things that they think you should improve. Secondly, I recommend Victor Chen's Case Interview Secret. I purchased his book, and then I also purchased the Look Over My Shoulder. So he talks a lot about how you should answer the question in a, I don't know how to say this, but like doing the consulting dance. So basically it's to answer a case interview question, you need to follow like a certain step almost. And then there are certain questions that will come up more than the others. So he teaches you all the structure and different types of questions you should ask, how you do different synthesis. So yeah, other than practicing it with a friend or a mentor, this is basically my study material.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of answers the question. I mean, that Victor Chang's book is actually one of the 3 books that we recommend to the students. There are 2 other books which is written by former consultants, such as Embracing the Case Interview is the new one, most recent one, and also Case in Point. It's another good book that we recommend for students to get the basics of how to prepare for the consulting, right? So I think Lizzie was the top student who also worked very hard and diligently to cover the basics, doing her self-study, but also leverage the mentors and peers to kind of practice what she learned in the real case interview scenario. So I think I think I totally agree with Lizzie that preparing for this is actually probably the best way. From mentor's perspective, like what I can share with the student is this, that practice with real cases. I mean, and also former students, consultants from time to time. So when you're seniors who did the internship or who alumni who work there, ask for an opportunity to try out for a case interview with them. That will give you a sense of what the case interview is really like. And even better will be if you have build a network of people or secure those group of consultants to kind of practice for you. That's even better. So practice, again, re-emphasizing what Lizzie did. But on top of that, I think when I was actually conducting the case interview to hire people into Bain, sometimes some of the cases were super difficult, such as I was asking how to save an airplane company which is about to go bankrupt. But then there was one student who really excelled that case interview. She was so good. I put all 5 stars and say, I mean, she's so good, we should hire her. And then sent it to the next round. And then after she got in, I asked her, how did you crack the case so well? I mean, that was such a difficult case. Everybody, almost 80% of students actually failed there. You got in and you really did a good job. Everybody was impressed with your answer. So that kind of almost made everybody certain that you are a good fit for consulting. And she told me her father works at the airline company. And so her father shared a lot about airline companies' problems and then how they are trying to solve it. And so she had this industrial background knowledge about the case interview. And it actually happened a lot in many times. So a few things that I want to highlight is when I was writing the case interview for the company, I mean for Bain, and then we actually kind of do internal review and then kind of circulate it worldwide to be deployed for your case interviews. What we do is we select some of the key industries that we serve. So it's not like we select any random industries to give as a case interview. We actually choose the cases that we actually served. And then, so basically, if you know what are the key industries that we are serving, each company is serving, then you know basically what are the industries that you should know a little bit more. And then having that contextual information about each industry really helps you to break the case interview. Because the more you know, the more you can actually answer, and then the more insight you have, and then the more likely you'll impress the interviewer. And same thing with the business strategy, because when we actually make the case interview, we combine industry and also we combine a functional strategy, such as marketing strategy or M&A strategy or pricing strategy or new market entry strategy. So we combine that with a specific industry. So if you actually took some of the business classes to learn about some of the business theories and strategies, then you have a very unfair advantages over the others. And then the chances you are likely to do much better than other students. So how do you get that? I guess take some classes in the business, but at the same time read a lot of newspapers because they are a great teacher about strategies and industries. And at the same time, you have to choose your practice cases in a wise way. So list out those industries and then those commonly, frequently used business strategies. And then try to actually pick at least one or two case interviews to each of those combinations. And then you'll be covering most of the cases that could actually appear on your case interview. So I think that's actually building this strong background of understanding really helps. And then on top of that, you practice and then practice with the mentors, and they also read those good books to kind of build the theories about how to crack the case interview and then apply that to real situation with multiple practices. I think that will surely get you there. And then I want to just echo what Lizzie said. I mean, when Lizzie said that you have to communicate it well, I mean, from recruiter's perspective, because I was the recruiter at Bain, I'm actually looking for someone who will actually talk well to CEOs and CMOs and then the senior management team of the client company. I don't want to select someone who can't really communicate well to the senior management, because as soon as the moment I hire that person, I will probably put that person into my team and ask that person to start communicating with the senior management team at the client company. So we really care that the person who we are interviewing is actually feeling like and looking like and sounding like a ready consultant. So they should talk. It's much easier and much better for you to get into the next interview if you sound like you communicate the way a management consultant will communicate, and you actually feel like a management consultant in terms of your thinking and your logical structure and so on, then it's more likely that you are going to pass it. Because the more you are already like a management consultant, the chance of passing the case interview will significantly increase. So I think just summarizing, you need to actually build a strong contextual background to make yourself successful. Second thing, you have to practice real cases, not just the fake ones that students create for themselves, but practice with real cases, and then also try to grab some of the former consultants to practice. That gives you understanding where you are, and then you can practice with your peers on the weakness, right? And then also you have to really prepare for behavioral question, like Lizzie said, because that's what determines whether they like you, and then whether they want to kind of invite you to be their colleagues, because they want to find someone who is feeling like a consultant and who sounds like a good person, because they'll be stuck with you for more than 40 hours a week to work together in a team. So preparing for this behavioral question, and then like tough personal questions, and also like basically communication will be super critical as the third part of the equation. Right? So I mean, but like Lizzie, I feel like I echoed everything you said, but I think good thing is we are super aligned there.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, did I miss anything to you? I mean, while I was talking, Lizzie, did you have something else that you want to add on?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. I mean, for this, I think we can always validate. We'll see more questions coming in, and then you can ask us any question, and then we can kind of answer you more here. And I think, being part of CareerSpeedy, I mean, we are at CareerSpeedy. I think we provide the TA, teaching assistant role to our select successful former students like Lizzie. So, I mean, if you have to, I don't want to sound too braggy about CareerSpeedy, but if you actually briefly mention about how can candidates benefit, I think basically the three things, right? I mean, since I'm a mentor, probably it's better for Lizzie to kind of share her experience than I talk about myself. But Lizzie, what are the benefits?
Of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think with CareerSpeedy, every mentor that you get the undivided attention. What I mean by that is every mentor only teaches up to roughly 3 students, and that's it. So I guess if you enroll, and then you will be on their on the focal of their attention, which is quite different from a lot of other career service that you will get, because I also have friends who have come to other different career services, such as, Dream Big Career or something like that. But then I think what really differentiates CareerSpeedy from all the other one is definitely the amount of attention you get from your mentor, and then just how thorough the project really is. It's ranging. If you want to go to consulting, they will have resume editing, and also prep you for behavior, and also case. And same goes for investment banking as well, but then case will be replaced with different technical questions. It's just, it's a very comprehensive experience that you will get from your mentor. That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lizzie. And I think, just echoing, I think Roger and the founder decided that we don't want to grow the company too quickly, because then it will dilute the quality. And it's actually the same practice Bain does, which is Bain decide to grow only about 12 to 15% a year to make sure the quality stays. So I think it's the same philosophy, that we only assign a limited number of students, otherwise the quality will be diluted. And one thing we really pride ourselves is that unlike other companies where they hire X consultants and then they will pair them with the students. So the other companies, a lot of them do the pairing. However, those mentors actually don't have what I call teaching material given by the company, right? So at CareerSpeedy, we actually invested a lot of our resources, a lot of time, and a lot of brainstorming session among the former consultants and mentors to build the curriculum. And so all of the mentors will teach the same curriculum and same teaching material. And then I think that's important because compared to in other companies, because there's no centralized curriculum, it will be dependent on that person to teach, what to teach, right? But as versus CareerSpeedy, I think we actually have centralized curriculum, and then that curriculum and then the teaching material is born by collaboration with among the mentors. So all of the mentors, the lead mentors, they train all the junior mentors. So, and then review the progress each week. So I think that ensures that regardless of which mentor you get, you'll be taught the same high quality. It's not like taking a lottery where if you get a good mentor, then you get good service, but if you get a bad mentor, you get a bad service. No, it's not like that. So we actually choose mentors who are trained by the company. And then also we regularly get the feedback from the student to decide whether to keep the mentor or not. So only those, if they get too bad comments from the students, they are actually out. So I think that kind of ensures the quality of the mentors, because after all, you pay a heavy investment to prepare for your career. And if there's damage to that preparation, who can compensate for the lost dream in your career track, right? So I think that's really, really important. Roger, do you want to add something here?
No, I think enough good words. I feel it's enough then, and hopefully we'll help even more Chinese international students to get into the top companies in the future.
Yeah.